Alrighty, so top tier, one big arty on each team. You've got more speed than them, so you still want to. The importance of this hill is a little bit understated. In the olden days, before they changed the north side of the map, people always used to go here because it was really important to go at one the game. Now that they've changed the map, you see more people go over here, but it's still not really that important. This area is still important. The reason why is because from this middle area here, you can control a large portion of the map, and you get fire lanes on a large portion of the map. So you want to be able to do that when you can. And so when you have comps like this, where right you've got you and a set 7-1 up top, right, you can outspeed them to that position. One of the best places to play, in my opinion, especially against a slower team, is that area right there, which prevents their slower tanks from pushing forward very easily. And your bulldog's going this way, and then you always look and see where things get lit, because that tells you what you're not going to run into. Like, you're not going to run, well, I guess it looks like T10 is coming this way. But like these light tanks right there, right, you don't have to worry about them being up front, because a T49 theoretically could hurt you pretty badly. And then here's where you need to be careful. So one of the things about this particular entrance right here is that artillery has a singular lane to fire through here. And so what you'll notice, particularly like if you watch me play artillery, what you'll notice is that the lane basically encompasses across this, in front of this little hill here, right? And it goes all the way back over here. So the more that you hug this inside, the more of an arty lane that you're in. And so typically when you watch me play, if I'm playing a regular tank and I'm trying to avoid arty, what I'll do is I'll come in a little bit more through this lane right here, maybe about 5 to 10 meters to the left of where your tank is right now. You could the danger with cutting across here is that I can hit the lane that you're in, but if you're a little bit more to the left, then I can't, and then you basically just drive straight into this hill, and that's going to protect you. Just so you guys know, like that's where the opening salvo goes, and like for example, when we play when we played this map on Clan Wars and organized play, that's the shot that I'm looking to get, because that's going to be the first spot that we get, and when you can hit through that lane, then people always travel through that lane. And then you certainly don't want to stop here. I agree with what you're doing. I think what you want to do is you want to prevent these guys from coming back here, but you need to do it from a little bit further up where you're actually safer. These guys are going to have shots on you as long as you have shots on them, no matter what. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to allow Artie or anybody else to get shots on you. But you got away with it, which is good. That's what you want to see. And so that 4202 is low, but see how your guys are mostly camping. This is a really bad dispersion, but say you guys are mostly camping, that's not so good. You get this E75 up here, which is good, but he actually needs to move forward, otherwise you're not going to have a whole lot here. So that's something that you're going to have to keep an eye on. And what you want to be able to do is when you can, you need to clear these guys out as soon as possible, because you've already lost this center lane here, which means that they can come up through here. And once these light tanks get up in here and they can get into this area here, this position right there, where you're at right now, is extremely compromised. And then see how your E75 is moving forward. That's fantastic. That's exactly what you want to see. You've got your 416 going in the back, which doesn't really help anything. As long as they don't put a rush tanks out here, this position where you're at is actually a really safe position, and you get nice shots on a lot of the map. You actually need to push these guys. And then so here's where you kind of need to take a risk, right? You know the FE4202 is one shot. You know the CDC is one shot. You need to try to clear those guys out while you have an easy opportunity. And so maybe Artie's looking this way, maybe he's not. I would actually worry a little bit less about the 482 because where he's going, like that's not a good position for him. There's just too many other things that can shoot him. But the CDC, on the other hand, right? You can easily get shots on that. And then again, you need to remember you can't back up too far because of that M103. Already just shot at your E75, so that's important to know. And I always check the time, so they hit your E75 at about 13:03, which means you have until at least 12 and a half. You need to be careful driving out this way because that M103 is going to get shots on you. What you should do, especially when Artie just fires, you should take that opportunity to just drive out there and kill that. No, it's already dead. What you don't want to do, you don't want to hang out on this side either. You actually want to get over in that area or that area when you can. Especially, see how your E75 is being aggressive? Like, you need to take advantage of that. We've got a lot of their tanks here. Your tanks have left the base, somewhat, which is a good start. And so this is a good position that you're going to over here. So what you need to do is you need to get up in this area right here so that you can put pressure on the T10, which will take pressure off of your E75. Perfect. Take your time, take your time, take your time. And then you just want to stay up here, like basically in this corner here. Theoretically, they can shoot at you from down over here, but if you back up into this hill right there, then you're pretty safe. And again, a lot of this is remember what you're afraid of. And you can push the T10. And that's one of the reasons why you kind of sit in that area right there. It's like, I'd rather, you know, especially when the T10 backs up like that, then you know that you're, relatively speaking, going to be safe. So you'd rather get yourself into a position where those guys can't shoot you from across the way. And it's the same thing here. Like, this position is not really that safe, especially since you know that they have people firing over there. But if you move forward a little bit right here, then it's really easy for you to get the shots and be completely safe. And so one of the things that, you know, when I see a situation like this, the M103 is completely unaware of you, right? His rear is to you, he's facing the other way. Unless you have some reason to believe that he's going to move out of that position, and I don't really see why you would think that. It's not like he can turn around and just run and leave. It's better to move forward, get into a position where you're safe before you alert him. Like, you alerted him and you got lit, and so now you can get shot from the position that you're at. So you need to be careful about that. So now he's going to face you, but you got your club off, so it doesn't really matter. But again, you probably need to try to take a hit here if... So the nice thing about the position that you're in is that you're completely safe from everything. So now you can just focus on this M103. And he'll back up eventually. You're not going to be able to push out at him just because of where the rest of their tanks are at. You just need to sit and wait for him to move back. So it looks like they're going to come in through the base the other way. There you go. So, like, a lot of times, like, I'll wait and see if I can get... That third shot was a little bit not quite enough. A lot of times I'll wait. If they're backing up, I'll allow them to wait a little bit so that I know that I can get, you know, my clip off, and then you can try to hit that drive wheel, which may or may not work. But you know, it's that quote from Napoleon: "Never interrupt your enemy while he's making a mistake." There you go. That was a nice shot. And then what you want to do is you want to watch this T25/2 over there. You're going to want to go back out this way, but you're not going to be able to save that guy. And these guys aren't going to push to help him. So you need to worry about clearing this out. Like, these guys that are over here, and this is one of the things that we talk about when we look at flank management. It's like this E75 and this T34, if you leave them here, they'll still be there when you get back. Like, these guys aren't really you know, haven't been super brave in terms of pushing. They didn't really help out their M103 at all, right? They're just kind of camping back here. And so a lot of times you want to just let campers camp, and you want to deal with the rest of the team where you know, make sure that you have an advantage, rather than create a situation where you attack into these guys and make their position relevant. If you don't have to make their position relevant, just leave them there. Luckily, he had the small gun. He has the T75 as a Tiger 2 gun. But you still should, and again, a lot of times, you know, when you're reloading in an auto-loader tank, you should always look to use that time to relocate. Because you're not going to really want to challenge these guys frontally, especially since you're one shot to the, well, potentially one shot to these guys, to the T-34. And so again, like I think this is an inappropriate use of the tank. Like especially with a medium tank, you don't want to be poking into heavies trying to trade. That's not really going to be your strength. Like a lot of these guys over here are going to get lit, and so all you got to do is sit up here and just shoot those guys and get that free damage. And again, it's a matter of don't make these guys relevant if they're going to just sit there and camp. Right? The only way that these guys are relevant is if you guys push into them. Otherwise, just leave them there. Yeah, these are not good shots that you're getting right now. And that's one of the things that you need to recognize in general, no matter what tank you're in, is that you have to ask yourself, is this a good matchup for me or not? And if the answer is no, this is not a good matchup for me, poking into these heavies, then you need to make sure that you're not in that situation. Luckily this E75 seems pretty bad. But this is still, like even now, this is still not a position where you want to fight those guys frontally. It's just not advantageous to you, right? In the meantime, right, you could be getting shots on these guys over here, right? And these guys will still be sitting there. And that's one of the things I always say. It's like, if you think that they're going to still be there when you get back, just leave them there. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a 450 meter shot there. That's going to, actually it's a little bit longer than that, because that was the draw range, not the check range. That was like a 525-ish meter shot, which is not good. And yeah, so now, see how you can get up here. So he's taking that ditch, so you're not going to be able to get shots on him, but you're looking for that T49 to come up through here, or that IS-3 to get lit on that side. Oh, they did move. Well, that's good for them. And again, still, at this point, I would actually consider ignoring those guys. Get your damage out here. One of the things about playing a medium tank in general is that you have the speed to dictate the engagements that you want to be involved in. And if you don't want to be involved in this engagement, you don't have to be. You can just leave. And so, like, if you can clip out this Tiger 2, you can just drive it out through here and then do, you know, either attack into that area. And it's still, again, better for you, so to speak. Not a good matchup for you. Well, hopefully the 416 pushes, gets a shot. You need to just go. Like, you need to just take the risk, and because you can't let your 416 sit up there. And especially, see how he's pushed in. Like, there's no reason for you to be slow playing this. Oh, you reloaded for some reason. So you had 2 shells in your clip, which was more than enough to kill the T-34. So there's no reason for you to reload at all there. It was an unnecessary risk to your teammate. And in the meantime, they finally broke through up here, which is unfortunate. I mean, considering how long you guys controlled the hill, you should have been able to deal a lot more damage to their guys across there. And then now this is tough because you're not going to really get good shots from up here, and you're one shot to everything now. And they're all on cap, so there's not going to be a whole lot that you can do. You need to start pushing down there. You're also loading a 2-shell clip right now, which is something you should be aware of. And now you don't even have enough ammo to win. Well, you might as well push through underneath the base, because you know that whatever the IS-3A or whatever is still over there. And so you never want to sit in the same place. Like when they know where you're at and you're outnumbered, you never want to be in that same position. Maybe they didn't know where you were at. Maybe not all of them knew where you're at. Lol. Alright, anyways. So a couple of things. I think you might have been able to win this. A lot of it depends on what your team would have done. Your team did not have a very good dispersion. They didn't leave the base. And then again, when you approach this center area here, be careful about how closely you hug this wall, because it's really easy for me to hit you with artillery there. So you want to come out a little bit more towards this little hill, use that hill to protect you. These guys that get shots on you will have the exact same shots on you. Essentially, you'll just actually be safer from artillery. So that's something to keep in mind on that approach. You guys controlled this hill for a really long time, and I thought that you should have been able to get more damage out, because they had guys crossing through these plains, and that's the advantage of holding this hill, is that you can get a lot of damage out on these guys as they try to push across here, which is why taking this north area is not really super profitable. I think the biggest what I would say mistake in the game would be to pressure that E75 and that T34 where they were at while their team was pushing across this open area. You should have been getting that damage out over here. Again, it's one of those things, you know, and I try to point it out when we do it in the stream, where if somebody's gonna not be relevant, don't make them relevant by engaging them when you could be doing something that's more productive for your team. And there was going to be a lot of free damages out that was coming out over here, especially as long as your 1390 or 1375, whatever it was alive over here. You're going to be able to get a lot of shots out into that area. So that's something to keep in mind, because you guys actually had pretty decent map control for when they were pushing. But instead, you spend most of that time down here trading with that E75 and the T34. And you actually traded pretty well with them, yet, because they weren't like super awesome players, yet that still didn't mean that that was a good idea. Just because you're not going to win that matchup most times, more times than not. And also from the fact that if they're not going to be relevant, don't make them relevant by engaging them. You know, do something that's gonna help your team win. So I think that was probably the biggest mistake. And again, a lot of that is, you know, as I was saying, it's flank management. Recognize when you're winning a flank, when you're losing a flank, whether the other flank needs help, whether your side needs help. If your side is the side that needs help, you know, you need to figure out whether you can fall back safely. Otherwise, you know, I actually thought that you shot pretty well, which is always nice to see. Alright, so if you look at the stats, not bad. You got to use all of your shells, which is nice. Just unfortunately was not in the most efficient manner. I thought you did a good job offensively. Again, my critique for a lot of these replay reviews is the defensive micro positioning is important. Understanding where the arty lanes is important. Understanding what you need to be afraid of is important. A lot of times people are only afraid of the tank that's closest to them, and that's not that's I want to say usually. We'll use that word, and that's usually not the thing that you need to be afraid of, especially if it's just a single tank. Which is why in a lot of games when you see me play, I will push into a single tank, into the where I'm going to get shot by a single tank in order to avoid getting shot by two other tanks. And so you need to do that sort of calculation when you are micro positioning yourself, and that's actually going to save you health over the long run. Because yes, the T10 can shoot you, but if he's the only thing that can shoot you, and you know that if you sit out there that other things are going to shoot you and that Artie's going to have shots on you, I'd much rather get shot by a T10 than by two other guys and Artie. Like, it's just, you need to make that sort of calculation when you're doing your defensive micro positioning. And my point of this is that when you watch people's replays, your own or anybody else's, or even you watch other streams, like, I see this a lot where people are only afraid of the tank that's closest to them, and you need to expand your sort of defenses beyond that. But he shot really well, did 10k damage in the T50, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, it was just not quite enough. You just didn't get quite enough out of your team to make it worthwhile. GG though, nice try. Alright, so the next one will be Black Dragon's Super Pershing. Yeah, and keep in mind, like, a lot of when I'm making criticisms or whatever you want to call it, I'm commentating on these games, it's, we're talking about very minor details in terms of, oh, like in that last game, the difference between being positioned here and being positioned 5 meters to the left or to the right, right? And it actually becomes significant in certain cases depending on the matchup that you're in. And that's what we're trying to say, and it's no game is perfect. And like, if I go back through my own replays, like we could go back through replays that I had tonight, and you'll be able to find different things where you're just like, oh, okay, here's the micro positioning is bad, or was suboptimal. And that's sort of part of, did I pause this? Apparently I did pause it. And that's sort of part of the analysis, where over time what you want to do is keep doing the good things and sort of cut back on making the mistakes. And once you start recognizing these little things where you're just like, oh, I got shot by 2 different tanks there and I just didn't need to. So this is assault. I don't really care for assault mode in most cases, but in the super Pershing, especially against no artillery, this is actually pretty good. So one of the things, especially when there's no artillery, is that the only dangerous part on assault or defending this particular map is going into this area right here, because once you start pushing forward here, you actually start pushing yourself into a natural flank where things can shoot you from the sides. So really what you want to do in a super Pershing is play either outside here. Usually enemy teams don't pressure immediately towards the cap, so you don't need to be too close to the cap early on. But what you can do is you can basically like circle out here and just keep everything in front of you because there's no artillery, and just start working things down. But really the only thing that you want to avoid is moving up through this middle area here. It's always nice to look and see what your team is doing, like that. You know that your T-32 is moving out here, which is okay, especially if he gets into this bowl. He can be pretty effective. This IS-6 is moving out there as well. And so if this T-32 moves out here, you probably want to move up with him because just the two of you could overwhelm. And see, if you went to the south, you could have bullied those guys there. That IS-6 had defensive positioning. And so this is a one of the problems that I have with one of the problems that I have with people is that it seems like they like to drive around more than they need to. A lot of times you want to just drive directly to where you need to go rather than take a roundabout path. And I'll tell you what I'll explain when I meant by the shot. So basically, you kind of meandered out here. What you really should have done is just driven straight over to help your T-32. And this is like a nice range for the Super Pershing because people can't really snipe you from this range. Not super effectively. You're giving a little bit too much side to this Hellcat. See how you're positioned out. With the Super Pershing, you basically just want to be completely frontal with people, especially at this range. It's a good range for you to be at. You probably should have tried to finish off that Hellcat. And again, this is sort of the range that you want to be at, this sort of 200-ish to 300-ish meter range. And if they're going to push in through here, then fantastic. And you can, you know, jiggle around a little bit while you're reloading. Just make sure that when you're loaded that you're facing the enemy, or that you're aimed in at the enemy. Lol, he's gonna sit there and try to trade. Yeah, APCR doesn't really help you he waited until he was one shot and then he's like, okay, now I'm gonna give it up. And so you're doing a good job. I mean, you're again, this is, you know, when we talk about playing these tanks in their sweet spots, in their butter zones, like this is the butter zone for the Super Pershing. Things are far enough away where they can't really snipe you very easily, but they're close enough where the gun's accuracy is not going to be a problem. And again, you're giving a little bit too much side to this guy because he can still shoot you through that drive wheel there. You always want to be pretty squared up against people in the Super Pershing, especially at this range. And so you probably need to counter push. And so this is where you need to sort of be careful here, is that you can't really push out like to the flanks of these guys because of where that OI is at, because you don't know what else is going to be back there. So a lot of times when you're in the Super Pershing, like once you've like you've played this perfectly in terms of the range so far, or you can argue that the enemy team played into the range for you, like that T-29 that just sat there at 200 meters trying to outsnipe you. But the point is that there's going to come a time where people aren't going to trade at you at range like that. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to close the gap. And so a lot of times with the Super Pershing, especially when you're top tier, no already like this, you don't need to be clever, you don't need to be ninja about moving around there. You can literally just drive up behind this IS-6, drive forward into that T-29 and shoot him in the face. Like there doesn't need to be a whole lot of subterfuge, you just need to just start hammering people. And it's the same thing here. Like now, what you need to do is just all you got to do is just drive over here and then just drive forward into the face here. Like, the only thing that you don't want to do is get flanked. So as long as you can keep things in front of you, that's exactly what you want. And you still want to just drive out towards them now, because one of the things that the calculus that you do need to make is that, you know, the argument that I hear a lot from people is, oh, I'm sniping and I'm shooting a lot of people, so I don't understand why we lost the game. You know, I did my part. My gun was active. There always comes a time, no matter what tank that you're in, where your team needs you to frontline. I guess not always, but there usually comes a time where your tank needs to be frontline for that. You're in the tank with arguably the best armor in this game right now, in this round that you're in, and you're getting good shots. But what you really need to do is you need to start preserving the life of like this T-32. Well, not so much the T-34-85, because if they want to kill them, they're going to be able to kill them. But like now, you're starting to roam into that area where you're getting a little bit too snipey, and you need to just start pressing and just start bullying people rather than trying to nibble, nibble, nibble. So just push straight into that Tiger 2 and just bully him. And then after you bully him, just bully that Indian. Remember, they're going to struggle. The only way that they can really pen you is if they... See, and again, there's no reason for you to not just chase that guy down and repeatedly punch him in the face. Like, you're being too tricky. And so a lot of times when you're wasting time like this, if your team dies, when you could have just literally just driven into them. And again, just a little bit too much side to this guy. You want to be a little bit more square. He did pen you to the front, but that'll happen. And then just turn the corner and bully this T-29. And then turn the corner and then just bully that OI. That's what a lot of this game is just bully. Just drive forward. Just drive forward. Just drive forward and just bully him. Just do it. Just don't be afraid, man. Just do it. Because you want to get there. You want to get him down before the OI gets him. I would actually already start turning your armor towards the OI. Like, again, like, to me, a lot of this is understand what you're afraid of. Like, I'm not really afraid of getting shot by that T-29, but if that OI pens you through the rear, which is entirely possible depending on how he aims, that's the end of your game, right? So you got to think of the OI a lot of times basically like artillery. So I would much rather get shot by the T-29 and have my armor facing the OI than the other way around. But again, a lot of that could have been avoided if you didn't quite nibble so much there. And you can basically side scrape the OI. You can pen him anywhere. The OI does not have very good frontal armor in the Tier 8 game. He's not going to be loaded either, so you can just kill him. And then you just want to turn around and bully this guy. And then you want to turn around and bully the next guy. And you don't want to block your buddy. Just keep driving straight at him. And again, so a lot of this is just you're trying to keep your friends alive. The Super Pershing is not the fastest tank in the world, but I mean, there's a lot of tanks in this particular game that are not going to be able to just outrun you, especially at these ranges. Lol. Blind shot, best shot. This is getting a little slow. IS-3 just drove past. It just gives you more opportunities to get damage. Alright, so I'm glad you won, but again, just a couple of mistakes as far as the early game I thought was fine. I think you needed to just drive forward a little bit more directly instead of sort of driving around to help that T-32, especially once you saw, I think it was like a Patton KR or something like that pushed into here. Sorry, losing my my throat. here a little bit, especially when you saw that patent KR push into here and your T32 pushed after him. Make sure that you get there to help him out. As far as the micro positioning defensively, again, in a top tier game with no artillery, just be pretty much square with everybody. That's all you really need to do. And I thought you did a good job of getting your damage out in that early game here. But once they started shifting in through this middle here, I felt like you should have just pushed in and tried to preserve more of your teammates' lives, especially if you're full health top tier in a super Pershing game like this. Like, this game is tailor-made for you. And so you want to keep a little bit more of your teammates alive, and the cushion, the margin of victory would have been a lot better. Especially when you know that you can bully, like that Tiger 2 bully, that Indian Panzer bully, that T29 bully. It comes back to the saying, if bully, then bully. You got to do it. And but yeah, I'm glad you won though. And so if we look at the stats, neither team did a whole lot. But you shot well, which is good to see. Actually, I felt like you should have been a little bit more of a target. But that happens. They moved into you nicely. That certainly worked to your advantage. So GG, well played. I'm glad you won.